Hey everyone, it's Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs. I created this really cool marble. Really turned out nice. This is what the customer was after, so let's just get started. I first want to put down a wash coat. That basically just kind of greases the surface, so to speak. So once the colors are poured out, as what you see I'm doing here, it really helps them flow. And I'm going to be using the Rolling Stone technique, and what that is that's using a 6-inch mini roller. It's a 1/4-inch snap roller. I use tape to de-shed that roller, and then before using the roller, you want to kind of prime it, so to speak. You want to get some epoxy on the roller so you're not picking any up off the surface. The idea behind using that roller is it really helps to kind of meld all those colors and really give it a kind of a real natural look. So I'm getting my colors poured out, and not in any particular order. Come fly with me, come fly away. Well, sometimes I just got to add that in. But as I'm getting the colors poured out, the one color I'm using, that's called Shooting Star. That has some really cool bling. That's an interference gold. That's a white metallic. And then there's also a pearl shimmer color that I'm using as well. And you can see I'm pouring that out in somewhat of some bigger areas, not thin areas, I guess, because as I take that roller and the roller isn't rolling, it's just pushing the epoxy and kind of spreading it out, somewhat melding the colors, but giving it more of a natural kind of a melded look. And I'm only using 4 ounces per square foot, and that's why I'm not using a tape dam. And the 4 ounces per square foot actually ended up working really well. See how it pushed that interference gold? All those colors you're going to be able to not necessarily see on camera, but you're going to be able to see them as you're standing over the top of the surface. But I wanted to get the undertones in there first before I went on to the next step. And that is to add in a couple different layers of some marbling. So this is just kind of getting the piece set up for the next step. Then after this first step, I'm going to torch it, and that's going to help the surface self-level before I go on to the next step. So I'm going to very lightly fog it. Again, very lightly. This is smoke gray, and I also have charcoal. You can barely even see any of it on the surface. Same with that. And then we're going to take our alcohol dyes. Yep, these are the same dyes as what's used for the Claramarble technique. Then I'm going to start off with a little bit of the smoke gray. And we're going to try that just in a couple areas. And the good news is that color guide is now available at rk3designs.com. So the reason I decided to experiment with the alcohol dyes, it's much less concentrated than if I were to put the Alumilite black dye in epoxy. And even if I put just drops on there, it really carries a lot farther. Here what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a little bit more selective of where it was going to go, and I didn't want it to spread as much throughout the piece. And as I run the roller through there, and I'm not rolling the roller, I'm just kind of pushing and moving the epoxy around. And you can also see, remember when I fogged with the spray paint? You can kind of see that there's a light layer on there because of the bright colors that reappear after the roller goes over the top. And it adds another level of marbling, which is really cool. And because of the long working time with Stone Coat Epoxy, that's how much it's going to soften up over time. So remember, you always have to give it time to develop and give it time to kind of soften and really give you that cool marbling look. And I'm going to put 1 drop of brown up here just to see how that's going to carry. Now the sample board's being created for a customer, and because they have brown floor, we wanted to add some brown in there to help tie into the flooring. And that actually is pretty cool. So now once again, I'm being real selective as to where I want to put that brown. I don't want to overdo it. I just want that brown to kind of be in there as some light accents. Again, it's an accent color that's used to help tie into, maybe it's the customer's floor, maybe it's their backsplash, maybe it's the color of their walls, the color of their cabinetry, or maybe it just is one of their favorite colors that they wanted added in there. And that's what's important about being able to visit with a customer and even to add some suggestions of things they may not have thought of, knowing that you can tie in with maybe even drawer pulls. And actually, if you went out to price natural stone, if there's any color in it whatsoever, if it has any red in it, any blue in it, it really jacks up the price a lot. So you can really take a marble or mimicking natural stone to another level just by adding in an accent color. And that, my friends, is what the slab yards and the big box stores can't offer. But that right there is really pretty, really pretty. All right, so one of the hardest things to learn when you're working with epoxy, and with stone coat epoxy, you've got about an hour and a half to 2 hours before you could no longer work with it. And that's really a huge advantage. But one of the hardest things to learn is to know when to walk away. Know when to walk away and know when to run. Sorry about that. But my point being, once you've worked with the epoxy, you know how much it's going to soften, and you know how much or what it's going to look like after the epoxy stops moving. And that's really important. There's an area I didn't like, so I had to fix it. But you learn what it's going to look like, which helps to know when to stop. And we'll spritz it with some pearl. This is isopropyl alcohol with pearl mica powder mixed in. And what that pearl is also going to do, instead of using clear, is it's going to add a little bit of color to it. And that color is kind of adding another layer, right? Adding more visual interest to the overall piece. Really makes a big difference. And it's not so much the effects that I want in there as it is the pearl that's going to end up adding a little bit of color. What I do like is that I went different directions with the roller, and that really, really gave it a really pretty marbling look and a marbling effect. So I really like how that turned out. We're going to give that some time and see how that works out. So now let's do a flyover after it's had a chance to kind of settle down, stop moving, and really soften up quite a bit. Ooh, there's some of that bling. And you can see how much already that has softened up quite a bit. There was a color that I used called Shooting Star, which adds some bling. So there's some times in there and some areas in there where you're going to see some of that bling. In person, it looks really, really cool. But you can see how the brown and the black marbling, and then also some of the real faint marbling, is from that initial fogging of the spray paint. And how much it softened over time really gives it a much more authentic marbling look. That brown, there's just enough in there that it's going to help tie in with the customer's floor, and that's what they wanted. What you can't see is when I spritzed it with the isopropyl alcohol with pearl mixed in, you can see some of the selling effects, but there's also some pearl in there. Again, that's hard to pick up on camera. Overall, I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and the customers especially really like the way it turned out, so that's what's going to go on their countertop. Thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to click that subscribe button for upcoming tutorials. This is Keith McGinnis with KCDC Designs, and we will see you on the next video.